Ever wondered what happened after Simba took his rightful place as king? We all remember that epic final battle. The flames, the hyenas, and Scar's terrifying end. But the movie doesn't tell us everything. There's a hidden chapter, a darker story that reveals the true weight of the crown and the lasting shadow of Scar's evil. This isn't just about a happy ending. It's about the struggle that came after. Today, we're diving into Simba's darkest hour, a story of a kingdom on the brink of collapse, and a king haunted by his uncle's final, chilling curse. So, Simba is king. The rains have returned, the Pride Lands are green again, and everyone's singing Circle of Life. It looks like a perfect fairy tale ending, right? Wrong. The reality was much harsher. Scar's reign wasn't just a bad few years. It was a catastrophe that nearly wiped out the entire ecosystem. The herds had fled, the rivers had dried up, and the land was barren. Rebuilding wasn't as simple as a rainstorm and a song. It was a long, grueling process. This is where the real challenge began for Simba. He was a great warrior, but being a king was a completely different game. He had spent his formative years living by Hakuna Matata, a philosophy of no worries and no responsibility. Suddenly, he was responsible for every single life in the Pride Lands. The pressure was immense. The other animals, once hopeful, started to grow desperate. They came to Simba, pleading for food and water that just wasn't there yet. Every sunrise brought new problems, and Simba, for all his strength, felt completely overwhelmed. And then there was the psychological toll. Simba was haunted by his past. He had the trauma of his father's death, the guilt of running away, and now, the ghost of Scar seemed to linger everywhere. He would see his uncle's sneering face in the shadows, hear his manipulative voice in the wind. This wasn't just paranoia. It was the manifestation of a deep-seated fear. The fear that he was not good enough, that he would fail just as Scar had. And worse, that deep down, there was a part of Scar inside him. This is what we call Scar's last curse. It wasn't a magical spell, but something far more insidious. It was the legacy of destruction and despair he left behind. Scar's goal was never just to be king. It was to prove that Mufasa's ideals of balance and respect were a foolish fantasy. By ruining the Pride Lands, he had set Simba up for an impossible task. If Simba failed to restore the kingdom, it would retroactively prove Scar right. The curse was this: either Simba saves everyone and works himself to the bone, or he fails, and Scar's cynical worldview wins, even from beyond the grave. The breaking point came during a great drought that followed the initial rains. The land, still fragile, began to turn to dust once more. The animals were starving, and whispers of doubt started to spread through the kingdom. Some even began to say that perhaps Scar, for all his tyranny, was a stronger ruler, that Simba's compassion was actually weakness. Imagine how devastating this would be for Simba to hear. He had fought so hard to reclaim his father's throne, only to be compared to the very monster he had vanquished. In his desperation, Simba started making mistakes. He became irritable, isolated, and controlling, trying to micromanage every detail of the recovery. He pushed away Nala, who tried to offer him counsel and support. He snapped at Zazu. He even started to resemble the very tyrant he despised. He was becoming withdrawn and angry, a pale imitation of the joyful cub he once was, and scarily similar to the lonely, bitter King Scar had been. This was Scar's curse in full effect. It was twisting Simba from the inside out, poisoning his spirit and his reign. This is where the story takes a turn, thanks to the wisest character in the Pride Lands. Rafiki, the old mandrill, saw what was happening. He saw Simba being consumed by his own fear and doubt. He knew that another lecture or a whack with his stick wouldn't be enough this time. So, he led Simba to the same reflective pool where he had shown him Mufasa's spirit years ago. But this time, when Simba looked into the water, he didn't just see his father. Rafiki urged him to look closer, past Mufasa's image, past his own reflection, and to see what was truly there. And what Simba saw horrified him. For a fleeting moment, the face staring back wasn't his or his father's. It was Scar, gaunt, angry, and full of despair. In that moment, Simba realized he was on the exact same path. He was letting the pressure turn him into the one thing he swore he would never be. This was his true darkest hour. The realization that Scar's curse wasn't just about a failed kingdom, but about the corruption of his own soul. He had a choice. Continue down this path of anger and control, and become his uncle's successor in spirit, or find a different way to lead. It was a profound moment of crisis. He wasn't just fighting for the Pride Lands anymore. He was fighting for himself. And what did he do? He finally broke. He confessed his fears to Rafiki, to Nala, and eventually to the other animals. He admitted he didn't have all the answers. He admitted he was struggling. And this vulnerability, this act of humility, was the key to breaking the curse. It was the one thing Scar, with all his arrogance and pride, could never do. By admitting he needed help, Simba proved he was nothing like his uncle. This changed everything. Instead of trying to carry the burden alone, he started to listen. He worked with Nala to organize the lionesses into more efficient hunting parties. He consulted with the elephants who knew where to find underground springs of water. He asked the meerkats and warthogs to help find new sources of grubs and roots. He turned his monarchy into a community. He realized that the circle of life wasn't just a concept, it was a practical guide for survival. Everyone had a role to play, including the king, whose role was to unite, not to command. Slowly, painstakingly, the Pride Lands began to heal for real this time. It wasn't a magical, overnight fix. It was the result of hard work, collaboration, and a king who was brave enough to be vulnerable. Simba learned that true strength isn't about having no weaknesses. It's about recognizing them and trusting others to help you overcome them. He finally understood the lesson his father had tried to teach him all those years ago. Being a king is not about taking, but about giving, and about understanding that we are all connected. So, Scar's last curse was ultimately broken, not by a magic spell or a heroic fight, but by an act of profound humility and community. Simba's darkest hour wasn't his fight with the hyenas or even the stampede. It was his internal battle against the ghost of Scar, against the fear of failure, and against the darkness within himself. And by winning that battle, he became a greater king than Mufasa, or even Scar could ever have imagined. He didn't just restore the Pride Lands, he transformed them, and himself, for the better. This story adds so much depth to Simba's character, showing that happily ever after is something you have to fight for every single day. What do you think of this hidden chapter in Simba's story? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite stories. See you next time.